This is Designing the Secrets of Animal Well. Unfortunately, it doesn't go into programming, as Reticide told me, but maybe there's some really good game design decisions that we can, you know, take away from this, because Animal Well is a hugely successful game on Steam, recently released with the help of Big Mode. Those of you who watch the channel know that Big Mode is actually made by a YouTuber, and he funds game developers that make really good games. And I'm keen because the cool thing about this game is that it is written in C++. Entirely by one developer. I wonder if he made the art himself, but maybe the video will tell us how he did it. Let's see.
Alright Ludo, come on. I need your help hunting for something. Or someone.
Okay.
Oh, I've become hyper obsessed with this game called Animal Well. It's all about secrets and I need to find the solo dev so I can pick his brains. But it turns out he's pretty elusive. See, I've narrowed it down to this cave system, but he's just not here. There has to be some kind of secret to uncover, but where? Oh, wait, hello?
Hi, I'm Billy Basso. I'm the solo developer of the game Animal Well.
Yeah, and
It's typical C++ programmer, guys. That's normal.
hindsight,
That's
it kind
how
of
we
does
all
make
are.
sense for you to be in the walls. Regardless, thanks so much for coming down to chat with us today, man.
Cool,
I've got
yeah.
so many
Hello.
questions, but firstly, Animal Well is so large with so many secrets to uncover. What were you thinking undertaking such a gargantuan project all by yourself as a solo dev?
It's hard to describe. I always try to remember that the project didn't start with this scope in mind, that it was just like a personal project that I worked on after work, and at first I thought it was going to be, you know, pretty small, and early on there's like the scope of the game just kept kind of growing each passing year that I kept working on it. For like a game about secrets, I think needs to at least be a certain size for it to feel special, for you to feel like there's things out beyond like the peripheral you're wondering about. So it just naturally sort of like grew until it felt right, and that ended up, for it to feel right, it took like 7 years to finish.
Yeah, I bet. But in a game that's so littered with so many abilities and hidden mechanics even within them, it must have been difficult to stagger all that out or predict what the players would do in such a non-linear world. Was that ever a concern?
Yeah, especially because the game is so like open-ended and non-linear. I can kind of predict what paths they'll
That's
go
a
down.
map.
Like early on in the game, you have like 4 different directions you can go in, and the game supports exploring them in any order. And then each area roughly has like a latter half to it that will require an item from another area. So there's like this dependency tree to the world that I know players will generally have to follow. Even like little bits of information where it's like, do they know they can do certain things with the bubble wand? And if so, then they can like engage with this puzzle.
That's cool.
And then later on, even in like other parts of the map, I'll try to give stronger
How do
hints
people see where they go, though? That's a bit odd to see, right?
that they can do certain things. So it's like if they didn't figure out the first time, if they keep playing in another direction of the game, they'll get like a more obvious like hint that they can do a thing. So eventually they'll figure out all the things they need to, but they might be stumped a little bit and have to like backtrack, and there's like multiple layers of hints, I guess, depending on how far they get in the game.
Damn.
Oh yeah, good point. We think one big advantage to the Metroidvania/Brainia genre as a whole is its usage of the map as a core tool for the player. Was the map a big part of your design philosophy to give those extra hints to specific secrets, or just to simply guide them?
Yeah, the map was something I definitely thought about a lot. Early on, I wasn't even sure if I wanted a map, because I played like all the From Software Souls games, and they don't have a map, and yet you can still...
Giga chat, fucking Giga chat, bro. We played all of the good games. See, he was inspired by those.
the world. So
Elden Ring
I
has a
knew
map,
that
yeah.
they weren't strictly necessary, but that you could potentially get by just designing a unique world with enough like landmarks and, you know, guidance indicators, and maybe that would be enough. So I wanted to at least do that, but then I eventually realized that a map is maybe more necessary in a 2D game versus a 3D game, because you can't see as far off into the distance. You don't have these like sort of landmarks that you can orient yourself relative to. So I think with the 2D game, I decided like, okay, there should be a map, but I still want to restrain it in certain ways, and I don't want it to just be.
It's difficult to read this map, right? Like, okay, so this is connected here, and this is like a secret room. It looks like there's another secret room, and the question mark means you have not seen this room yet, or
you know, quest markers to go to. So
I don't know what that means.
I still wanted a player to feel like present in the world and sort of have agency in where they go, but then, you know, still give them a useful tool. The stamps and the pencil in the game are kind of ways to sort of facilitate that and encourage players to like make up their own goals and
you
use
can
the map
make
in
you could draw
ways
stuff,
they feel
quest marks,
appropriate. But yeah, and then the way it like fills itself in, it does like leave gaps in the walls to sort of indicate unexplored areas. So I think learning to take advantage of the map is just like a skill players can get, and you can go into a room and there literally might be like invisible walls that have secret passages, but they'll be visible on the map if you open the map, and all you have to do is see that some of the pixels are missing where the walls are. And then I did also have to be pretty careful to make sure that there weren't any gaps in the map that led to dead ends. There are still some cases where there are like stalactites you can break or vines. So a lot of players do take it very seriously, and they'll be literally pixel hunting and staring at like, is there a 1 pixel gap here? And if so, I'm going to spend like 45 minutes like trying to get into it. So I had to be respectful of those players and make sure that the map made sense and there was always like something there to acknowledge their efforts.
Yeah, you really have to respect the player's ferocity when presenting your game as being built around secrets, be it as simple as discovering new applications for your items or as big as an internet-wide ARG, because people will lose their time and minds attempting to uncover stuff if they think it's there. And that's why I'm so impressed that you've done all of this secrecy and guidance with basically no dialogue at all, well, apart from this little froggy boy. There's absolutely no
See, that's cool. So he basically shows it through gameplay then.
It's left entirely up to the player to discover these things, but it never feels forced, and I think a lot of that is due to how you manage your QA design. No, not quality assurance. It stands for question and answer design. It's the art of providing the player with a question and then meaningful ways to explore the potential answers to that question through gameplay. And you want to constantly be providing the player with questions. How do I open this gate? What do these items do? What the ever-living fuck is this pedometer? But frustration is born when no avenues to answer these questions are given, no threads to pull. This is how players become lost and disinterested, and this would have been incredibly easy for that to happen here.
Please give an example of the game for those that didn't play the game and an answer. Please, I hope they give like an example of what they mean by that, because this is something that we can learn from. That is really interesting and important.
An animal world due to the lack of direct communication, but no matter where you go, new questions and potential answers are constantly being drip-fed to the player. Be it simple interactions always being framed on the same screen or overarching ARG conspiracy threads to pull within them. The player is no longer lost, but has a new short-term goal to aim for with
so
multiple
general
paths
again.
and methods to try,
Make an example.
keeping the player engaged until the next question is posed. So, is this kind of QA philosophy something you personally considered when designing the game's small or even grander challenges?
Make an example.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something the foundation of how I approach just game design. So I'm always sort of keeping track of what sort of questions I've asked the player. Like, I know when I'm showing them something that's kind of curious, and I have to kind of do that with care, or I have to like pace that out in an appropriate way. So there are things that I know they won't understand, and then there's things that like they won't understand I don't even want to show them. So I have to like sort of reveal different things sort of in layers, and then also keep that balance with like how often they figure something out.
Yeah, I've never really considered how important staggering information actually is in a game with no dialogue, hand-holding, and it's even based around obscuring information.
Because like in our tower defense game, we could do that too, right? Without any hand-holding. I wonder if it's possible, but maybe.
Overload the player with too much information on one screen, they may believe that the background art is relevant to the current question being posed to progress, but in reality is a hint for a future overarching secret. How do you manage to blend all of that together?
Yeah, just trying to if I'm adding an extra puzzle to a screen, I kind of want to disguise it from the first time player, and then they only notice it later on, so they can play through the game kind of more oblivious to the stuff and just focus on like the more simpler puzzle platforming, and then later on they'll learn more about the extra stuff.
It's a balance, right? You want the potential answers to the puzzles at hand to be at the forefront, but because of the interconnectedness of the entire game, each and every element is a thread to pull, so it's difficult to populate the world with seemingly meaningless art and creatures, but to then have them have delayed meaning later on.
I tried to just not add anything that was just superfluous. If there is like a unique object in the game, I was always trying to like give it a gameplay purpose or some kind of mechanic, and not just be disposable and like superficial. Like, I don't know, I think there's a lot of games where there's just tons of NPCs in the world and they just like do nothing, and they'll just like stand there and like look at you, or they'll just like play an animation.
Yeah, like in Gothic 1, what they did with these NPCs is every single NPC you could talk to and you could ask them questions, and then they had like, I think, 3 base types of NPCs, and you would go to them and they would all have more or less the same questions, but they would give you, that you could ask them, but they would give you different answers. And sometimes hidden in those NPCs, they would hide like a funny response if you ask them the same question multiple times, for example. And so that's how in that early game, which is like, I think 1990 or 2000, I think it was 2000, must have been 2000, they managed to create interesting base NPCs that way. Yeah.
And that always just felt really hollow.
And so what you would do then, you know, that encouraged you to go to these NPCs and talk to them, right? Which is what I did. You do that the first time. The second time you don't. But the first time you play the game, you do that.
Where it's like maybe
because there could be something hidden,
more alive in some very cursory, like superficial sense, but it's not adding anything to the game. It's making the game just feel less responsive in a lot of ways. So if there's something in the game, I want people to trust that, like, okay, this has significance and it's worth thinking about. But I think, yeah, for the whole time I was developing the game, I was sort of, I don't know, just kind of having this like hypothetical like conversation with the player in my imagination of what they would be doing. And I was sort of, you know, trying to put myself in their shoes and just do what I thought would be cool in the game. And a lot of the puzzles, especially later on, and that I really didn't intend people to like find them, but you know, I was still like hoping they would get noticed, and not only did they like get noticed,
that looks
but
cool.
people got like extremely obsessed with a lot of the stuff. And I like to think that you can trust people to care. If you care about the world, like they'll care, and that's like certainly been the case. Players have been very, very smart and clever, and they're finding things that I just didn't ever expect.
It's a different level of satisfaction when you respect your players' intelligence and allow them to figure things out without having an NPC to give them hints while they're
I hate that.
Not naming any names. You have to figure it out yourself, and that frustration is a part of...
No, like what he's talking about can be, he can be wrong here. What he's talking about, having an NPC tell you what to do, because for example in Dark Souls 1 there's this guy that you meet right as you get to Blighttown. He sells you some stuff, but and he talks about Blighttown, you know, but right as you go through Blighttown and then you come back to the Shire, there you can find him below the bridge. And he can tell you some secrets about the game. You know, the guy with the goggles and the helmet that has like two horns. He can tell you secrets about the game that you would never know. Or maybe you figure that out yourself, but you would never know if he didn't tell them to you. Like, for example, you can get cursed yourself. That reduces your HP by half. So you only have half HP, but that allows you to attack ghosts with any weapon. Right? And so he gives you these hints out of nowhere all of a sudden, because you found him under the bridge. And so, like, he can be wrong. His statement can be wrong if the way you uncover these secrets through the NPC is somewhat interesting. Was he the blacksmith? Did you kill him? No, it wasn't the blacksmith. It was the guy before Blighttown, the guy with that sells you his armor pieces and crystallized weapons, crystal weapons.
of that process.
Yeah, I think it's, I can see from a business perspective or from like people in charge of these AAA games where like if you watch a playtester and they're stuck, oftentimes they will seem like unhappy. They'll be like frowning and frustrated, and prior to like them figuring out, they'll look bored. But it's like inside they're thinking. Eventually, when they do figure it out, they're like very, very, very excited.
So that's interesting. I wonder how we can apply that to our tower defense game. I will think about that. You know, letting the player uncover the secrets of, let's say, my tower defense game, right? Because there are secrets.
We've seen that a lot where we've like play tested things, and but I could see early on you're tempted to be like, oh, just like I'll just give you the answer, and then you'll move on and keep seeing the nice art or whatever, and you'll just have this like, you know, vaguely pleasant experience the whole way through. And there's no high highs, but there's no like low lows. So, but I think ultimately, like for the health of the long-term experience,
that's a difficult one
to like be challenged and like to grow and have those moments of understanding, and it's really important that
that's why Dark Souls works.
Like maybe the most important part of the experience.
You've got to feel challenged for that satisfaction to have time to cultivate, but some of the game's puzzles are extremely difficult. Yeah, and we unfortunately live in the day and age where you can simply just look up things on Google. And the days of exchanging rumors on the playground and hearing of the...
This is what I can understand, but I also don't understand, because you are buying a game, right? So that you can spend time in the game and enjoy yourself. Why would you shorten that time? By watching guides. I can understand being prepared for like a game, but what do you ultimately get out of this? You have less time enjoying the game, essentially. That's what it feels like. It feels like a rush to complete.
Through word of mouth are mostly gone. Is it difficult to design a game around secrets, but to know that once it's out there, there's going to be a wiki and thousands of guides online? Does that take away from the design philosophy?
I think it's an interesting thing to think about. I almost think of the later game, the really secret puzzles in Animal Well as almost like multiplayer experiences, because I designed them where it's like maybe an individual player may find one or two of them on their own, like they might just get lucky and stumble upon them, but I didn't expect one person to find them all. So I envisioned them from the beginning to be like community collaborative puzzles, and I really wanted,
I mean, this is what Dark Souls DLC is all about, right?
and people to talk about the game. I wanted them to have conversations and get in touch with like the broader community and sort of build those connections. So it's actually, it's an interesting...
See, this is what I hope for my game too, even though like I didn't talk about it yet much. I want to have hero unlocks in the game that are specific to certain challenges that by accident can be found, but the majority of players might not find them. Just like in Vampire Survivors, you know how you can get special heroes. For example, you can kill the Reaper, and then you can get the Reaper as a reward. Stuff like that is only possible if someone tries that and does it, but the majority of players will not do that.
Thing there, in a lot of ways there's a push from tech companies to take that away or like sort of make that unnecessary, like the PlayStation hint system is one thing that early on we were considering doing, where it was sort of pitched as like, oh,
we? He's talking about we, guys. What does he mean, we? So this guy wasn't alone?
you can stay in the game and just get a hint when you're stuck, and you don't need to go on a wiki or a forum, and you don't need to look things up, and the game will just sort of tell you what you need when you need it, and you just stay in this experience. Or I just think that's like a very isolating experience. I think when a game is hard, it's actually an opportunity for people to bond with each other and like have this shared experience, and I think that's a cool thing that I want.
Yeah, you guys helped me with the Dark Souls DLC, for example. Without you guys, I would have had to look that up. 100%, yeah.
Like design around.
You got invested into that process.
So you've taken the perceived loss of the playground conversations and just designed the game in a way to create that discussion space online with the broader community. Huh, that's fucking sick.
It's not really probably one person, but it's like thousands of people working in parallel to sort of explore every possible path the game can go down. And when you're designing a puzzle,
Man, it's a really beautiful game.
Entity,
it's crazy.
It's very different. So
look at that.
Be, you know, borderline impossible.
Is he using bloom here? Maybe a tiny bit, right? You see that? Wow. That looks so fucking good,
they'll
man.
still figure it out within like a
It's
few
all
days.
pixel
so
art.
it's like if there is any
Really cool.
logical solution at all, like they'll find it.
Yeah, you've got to trust in your players' intelligence and also account for their collective intelligence too when designing secrets for a modern age. So
Yeah.
I won't press you too much more for info on secret design because we've got to keep some things in the dark. But honestly, Billy, I'm so blown away by not just how you've built such an interconnected world mechanically, but also fostered a connected community outside of the game solely based on its internal design, all by yourself nonetheless.
How did he market the game before Big Mode though? How did people know about? I think I've seen Animal Well before the release of Big Mode. What did he do? Will you play this game? Yeah, eventually. I would love to play this game. Yeah, sure. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly an inspiration. I'm so happy that
He did
Animal
everything
Well
himself.
and Big Mode, for that matter, have seen the success they have. It's so well deserved. And thank you so much for coming to chat with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm honored that you wanted to have us, so thank you.
Yeah, but the question is, what do you think? Do you think there are still secrets to be found in Animal Well, huh? And do you think
Yeah,
combating
100%.
this wiki game syndrome by creating community-driven puzzles is a good solution? Because I do. But let us know down below, because we would love to discuss this with you.
Is the video over already?
Yeah, my head hurts too, puppy. I can't imagine creating something like this as a solo developer. It is actual
I mean, it took him 7 years, so yeah.
madness.
The crazy part is that he stuck with the game for 7 years. You know, you got to be invested into something to stay with that for such a long time. You know, most people quit after like half a year or maybe a year in, and they realize like, oh man, this is not for me.
But do you know what
That's
else
a
is
Giga Chat
madness? Our latest merch drop. Yeah, check it out, gang. Come support the show. Look at this cool...
Would have been cool to see more about the development process, you know, how, like what I always love hearing is how did he tackle being not depressed, but feeling bad about his progress? How did he tackle the difficult times? And what did he do on good days? Or, you know, and how often did he work on the game? What did he do when he was running out of money? Or like, okay, so he had a side job, but how long, right? There's not so financial, but like this entire journey from start to finish. That would have been really cool. Because you can take a lot of stuff away from this to learn for yourself. Let's say you are in a similar situation, right? Most people start by having a job and then they do the game dev on the side, which is, I think, the best way to get into game development if you're not already in the space. You do it next to your job, maybe in the mornings, maybe after the job, right? Something like that.
Design. You could wear this on your body. All right, say goodbye, Ludo. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. All right, guys. Good video. Would have loved to see a little bit more, you know. I'm so interested in this Animal Well guy, but here it is. Animal Well guy. Here it is. For those of you who want to send him an email and ask for an interview, even if the odds are low, he might agree and it would boost your channel. I don't want to do it to boost my channel, but that's actually a really cool idea, bro.